Chapter 3. The silver shield on its chain around his neck thumped against James Edwards' chest as he ran through the New York City night, whacking him pretty good, given as how it was just a badge and not all that heavy. Probably be a little bit heavier if it was gold, but there wasn't much chance of that happening anytime soon. It was kind of hard to get to be detective when you had an attitude like James. Even he had to admit that. Still, the silver one was whacking him hard enough. Of course, he was running full speed, and even though they'd left the two out-of-shape uniforms in the dust behind them, the fleeing perp held his lead over Edwards. The man was 25 yards ahead and going strong. Man, the perp must be some kind of track star, though he sure didn't look it. Edwards himself was the fastest guy he knew, and he'd normally have run 9 out of 10 bad guys down by now, especially working undercover and getting to wear his running shoes. The perp must be on something. Speed, or Genesid, or vitamins, or something. Well, he'd been chasing the guy for 6 blocks in the damned dark, and this was getting old. He had already worked up a real sweat, and it was way, way too hot for this crap. The perp ducked into the subway, right into Grand Central Terminal. Fine. Time to try something else. Stop! NYPD, he called. Sometimes that helped. It helped, all right. The perp fired his afterburners and put on a burst of speed. This is not how to get your gold shield, James, he told himself mentally. You don't let them outrun you. Few people in the station bothered to look at the running men. This was New York City after all. Everybody had seen Stranger Things, usually every day of the week, and probably twice on Sunday. Cop chasing a perp? Not enough interest for the average 10-year-old to worry about. Stop! Police, he tried again. The perp just sped up more. Dammin', Edwards thought. Better save his breath for running. Oops, look out. The perp was heading up and back to the streets again. Taking the stairs 2 at a time, Edwards continued his pursuit. A cab screeched to a rubber burning stop inches away from slamming into the sprinting detective, and the driver expressed an opinion as to Edwards' IQ. Yeah, Edwards said. He offered a one-fingered salute to the cabbie in response and kept running. The perp made it to Park Avenue Bridge. He looked back at Edwards, then vaulted over the rail to 41st Street below. Damn it, that was a 30-foot drop easy. Guy had to be tanked on something. Edwards took a deep breath. Edwards took as deep a breath as he could get and bailed over the side. Perp could do it. He could do it. Ugh! He came down on one of those cheesy fake double-decker buses. This was one full of tourists. Enough cameras among them to sink the Staten Island ferry. They gaped at him, open-mouthed. Don't worry, folks. Just part of the tour. Perp. Where was the perp? There he was, already off the bus and on his feet again. Damn. One of those slow-moving New York Post delivery trucks came by. Going in the right direction, Edwards sprinted, caught the back of the truck, climbed aboard. There the perp was, running along the curb, still going strong too. The truck caught up with the perp. Edwards leaned out and smiled. End of the line, pal. Your luck just ran out. He jumped from the truck and brought the perp down with a fairly nice tackle, if he did say so himself. The perp yelled, He's coming! He's coming! Edwards shook his head. Yeah, right. He gets here, I'm going to bust his ass too. Give me your hands. He pulled his cuffs. The perp turned, his face toward the policeman. He looked terrified. Then he blinked, and Edwards pulled his face back and stared at the perp. Holy moly. The guy had 2 sets of eyelids. The outside ones were normal, but the inside ones were white and kind of gummy looking. Something was definitely wrong with this picture. He's coming, the perp babbled again. Who you talking about? Jesus? Don't worry, you're going to be in a nice safe cell when he gets here. We'll send him around to see you in the other centers. Abruptly, the perp moved. He had something in his hand. Gun. It was a weird-looking piece, like it belonged on Deep Space Nine or Babylon 5 or something, but there was no mistaking what the perp was going to do with it. He pointed it at Edwards. The gun's bottom half glowed a kind of pulsing yellow, and it whined like a dog whistle. Must be one of them new laser jobs. Probably had an infrared sight or something on it. Jesus. NYPD on undercover assignment, Officer James Edwards focused his entire attention on that weird gun the perp pointed at him. That was where the danger was, and he couldn't really see much, but that big gun. He grabbed the perp's hand and slammed it down against the street. The perp's gun went poof and shattered into a million pieces. Zap, just like that. Son of a... The perp slammed his knee into Edwards' groin. Oh, man. Edwards grunted in pain, released his grip on the man, grabbed at his injury. The perp took off like his tail was on fire. Felt like part of him was on fire too, but now he was really pissed. Nobody was going to give him a groin shot and just leave. Thank you very much. Edwards put the pain into a holding area and started after the perp again. This guy sure was going to a lot of effort to avoid a bust for what would probably get bargained down to a misdemeanor. Didn't make any sense. Most of what criminals didn't make any sense. Damn it, you stop. You are making me mad here. Then the perp leapt over a moving car and ran toward the Guggenheim. Edwards stared. Nobody in the world could make that kind of jump. A bus rolled in front of him and Edwards pulled up short. When the bus passed, there was no sign of the perp. Well, damning. Edwards was in good shape, but he wasn't planning on running a marathon and breaking the world's highest jump record when he clocked in this shift. Edwards got to the Guggenheim and leaned over the wall that surrounded it, looking for his quarry. Something flew past him. The perp, who left from 20 feet down to the top of the Guggenheim. Man, this had to be a nightmare. It couldn't be real. But even so, he wasn't going to let this guy get away now. He ran into the museum up the grand ramp. While he ran, he said to himself, Man, I knew I should have called in sick and gone to the ball game. When the perp opened the roof door to go into the Guggenheim, he got a surprise. Hi there, Spider-Man, Edwards said, his pistol aimed at the perp's nose. Tell you what, you teach me that jumping trick and I'll put in a good word for you at the trial. The perp moaned and started to back away, his hands held out in front of him. Hold up there, pal. But the perp kept backpedaling until he reached the roof's edge again. No, he's coming. He'll kill me. I failed and he'll kill me. Edwards didn't know who he was, but it had dawned on him it probably wasn't Jesus. Not unless he planned to come back a lot more militant than he'd gone out. Take it easy, pal. Nobody is going to kill you. I know a nice, safe place. Got real thick, padded walls. Nobody can get to you there. You just come along with me. We'll protect you from them. The perp tried to back up some more, but he was out of room. He hit the short safety wall, looked down, then back at Edwards, and went right over. He screamed all the way down. Edwards looked over the side. He wasn't walking away from this fall. Damn it, man, what the hell are you? I mean, were you, Edwards thought. He leaned back, heard sirens, but figured they weren't for him. The uniforms were back there somewhere, lost in the vastness of the city. He needed to find a phone and call us in. He really ought to consider popping for a cellular. Never knew when he might really need it, but since he would only use it on the job, it didn't seem right. He should have to pay for it. It didn't seem right he should have to pay for it. Boy, this wasn't going to go over big back at the precinct. No, sir, he could already hear the shuffle they'd send over, see his surprised expression. Should have stayed home in bed this shift. No two ways about it, James, my man.